Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate everybody coming today. We apologize for a little bit of a slow start. We had to make a lot of copies. With your indulgence, what we'd like to do is, since it's the most complicated, is to lay out the healthcare proposal. And we can, perhaps when he's done, you can pose whatever questions you wish before you caucus to review it. I'd like to lay out some of the statistics on the wage proposal, and then I have about 4 or 5 other issues that we've not talked about, but the association has brought to the table in an effort to try to get off dead center and try to get this done in the next couple of weeks. So if that's all right with you, that's where we'll start.
All right.
Presentation.
Yep.
Good afternoon. I'm Randy McGraw with Hub International Insurance Services. I'm here to go over our presentation for our health proposal for today, November the 3rd. You should have a hard copy of the presentation as well. One of the things I want to do is just go over a few background historical items to set the stage for the discussion that led towards the logic of the proposal for today. And be happy to entertain questions during the proposal if you have any that you want to ask. So on my page 2 is basically just a brief recap of the various proposals that have traded back and forth between the two parties. The very first meeting, April the 29th, was when SPOA made their first presentation. I believe at that meeting too, the city gave a presentation from Tiffany Parker with NHBT and went over some statistics and claim details and forecasted savings, etc., which will play into the presentation too, as well as those. So basically, April the 29th, the union proposed a defined contribution approach, which was rejected, and then also came back on June the 12th with a revised proposal, which was rejected. July the 10th, the city put forth a proposal. It was just kind of summary form in terms of total dollars to be expended, but not real details on the benefits or rates or payroll reductions. On September the 23rd, the association responded with a defined benefit contribution, or defined benefit proposal, which was rejected. And then on October the 7th, the city came forth with their version of the 3-tiered plans with payroll reductions, which the association rejected. When we were here on October the 21st, just a couple of weeks ago, the association put forth a concept whereas all participants would participate in the consumer-driven health plan. And we had a spirited discussion. The city responded with a couple of counter proposals, and that leads us to where we are today. I wanted to step back to April the 29th too, because you'll see these numbers and how they play into the logic in terms of the proposal that we're putting forward. So there were 2 key points outside of charging premiums that MHBT put forth in the presentation on April the 29th. 2 things. First of all, because of the number of claims and frequency that are going outside of the network, that there was a potential $1.3 million worth of savings to the health plan if we could keep people from going outside the network through plan design type of changes. Secondly, there was an estimated $1.2 million worth of savings for redirection from what was, I guess, characterized as higher than expected or normal utilization of the emergency room. So those two features alone, if addressed, which are addressed in the proposal with the exchange of back and forth, about $2.5 million. Also, I just want to point out too, because at the last session, there was a debate over what are things worth, etc. And just wanted to point out that I think this is a good testament to our capabilities, This is a slide shot from December 9th in the Healthcare Task Force, where it was comparing the city of San Antonio to 6 other Texas cities, 2 of which I highlighted in yellow that are our clients. So we do have a track record of being able to help our clients manage costs and bring expenses in, and we're below the median point. There's only 1 city that outperforms our clients. So what I want to do now is go over, there were some questions that were asked when I put up a chart last time that showed different costs based on different assumptions with contribution strategies. So I've got several different proof sources here for you to review. The first of which is an actual proposal from United Healthcare for a public entity, about 3,000 employees, public information, a regular school district. And in this scenario, you can see this is a situation where United Healthcare is assuming the risk, and they're either going to make money or lose money based on their pricing strategy. The school district offers 4 different benefit plans. The one on the far right is referred to as the state plan, and that's fairly similar to the legacy plan or the current level of benefits that the association currently has. That plan happens to have no deductible, but it does have a $1,000 individual out-of-pocket maximum, which is similar to what the legacy plan has right now. On the far left, under option 1, is a consumer-driven health plan. In this scenario here, it has an individual deductible of $2,400, a little bit less than what we talked about 2 weeks ago, $2,600. It has a family deductible at $5,800, which is a little bit more than the $5,200 that we did talk about a couple of weeks ago. But you can see that United Healthcare prices the differential between those 2 plan designs at a 38% discount. And United Healthcare happens to be the claims administrator for the city of San Antonio as well. I have a couple of illustrations too. This one isn't in the handout because it's like multiple pages, but I just wanted to show you. This is real-time proposal from Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's not for a public entity. You can see it's proposed for January 1/15 effective date, so it's current. And in their layout here, they have like a menu of different plans they offer. Here's a $250 deductible plan, so very similar to the legacy plan. It has a little bit higher out-of-pocket amount at $1,250. You can see the different co-pays, etc. The employee-only fully insured rate is $698. If we go down to a couple of alternatives, here are some consumer-driven health plans. Here's one which is what we proposed last time, $2,600, $5,200 individual family deductible. The employee rate of $478. That's discounted 31.5% from the plan that's equivalent to the legacy plan. Here's a plan with a $3,000 deductible that is discounted 38.1% relative to the equivalent plan from the legacy plan. This version of a Blue Cross proposal for the city of Socorro, in public information, January 1 effective date. You can see the same thing. Here's in their illustration on the menu, plan number 1, priced at $688. You can see these 2 consumer-driven health plans. Blue Cross is consistent. They use the same rule, and they're fully insured book of business in this category. 31.5% discount, 38% discount relative to that plan that's equivalent to the legacy plan. I was trying to get other proposals on a current basis too. This is a private sector employer. This one, really, I don't have a plan or a benchmark for them for something equivalent to the legacy plan. But you can see from the best plan offered, which is a $1,500 deductible, happens to have a $4,000 out-of-pocket cap compared to an HSA deductible or consumer-driven health plan deductible of $3,000, a 19.5% pricing differential. So what I'm trying to illustrate for you is that insurance carriers with millions of customers, when they go to price their product, it's their money and their own risk. These are the types of assumptions they use in the value plans relative to each other. We had this slide in the last presentation too. These are the rates that you've been presenting to your civilian employees through open enrollment. And in your own practice with your civilian workforce, you've got a 31.9% pricing differential between your new value plan and your consumer choice plan. And down here at the bottom, you can see where that relative difference is. Your new value plan has a $1,250 deductible with a $3,000 out-of-pocket maximum. By raising the deductible $50 and raising the out-of-pocket $1,000 for your own civilian workforce, I would imagine under the advice of some of your advisors, you've given that a 32% pricing differential. So the one thing that we've agreed upon all along is that if the legacy plan continues as it is, it should cost about $35 million this next year. So that's the starting point that we've had in all our discussions in our recurring meeting. As I pointed out, the plan design changes that were brought to your attention and our attention from MHPT could save you up to $2.5 million. That's 7% of $35 million. Before you start tinkering with deductibles or co-insurance or co-pays or things like that. The discount assumptions that we're building into our proposal today, I think you'll find are reasonable, and I'd like to go through those with you next. So we had a spirited discussion last time over whether we should offer just one plan or 3 plans. The city made it clear that you would like to make sure that people have choice. So this would be what our proposal would be, is to return to the concept of 3 different benefit options using the legacy plan, the value plan, and a consumer-driven health plan. I put some notes at the top too. The payroll deductions for the value plan are exactly what the city proposed in your October 7th proposal. The payroll deduction amounts that we've built into the legacy plan, we actually put them a little bit higher than what you had proposed on October the 7th. Not by a whole lot, but just by a little bit. On the consumer-driven health plan, we propose a $3,100 individual deductible with a $6,200 limit per family and contributions to the health saving account of $1,500 per individual or $3,000 per family. The following pages is the math that supports several different scenarios. So on page 13, this would be the math behind what we just looked at on page 12. You can see that we're using your enrollment assumptions of 30% participants in the legacy plan, 50% of the participants in the new value, 20% of the participants in the consumer-driven health plan. When you run the math through all that, you can see what the cost of the health plan is in terms of contributions, not necessarily actual costs. The other thing that's key to point out here is that we're assuming only a 30% discount relative to the legacy plan. So like we just saw, we saw several examples where Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and Aetna assign an even higher differential for a deductible in that level. So we're being conservative in this illustration.
Randy, do you think there's any significance to the fact that the examples that you gave all have significantly higher premiums for the employees to pay than what you're proposing? For example, the Aetna plan has $400 or $500 for the employee only.
Those are the total rates. These do not break out of payroll deductions.
Do you know what the breakout is?
Pardon?
Do you know what the breakout is?
On the one from Aetna?
Yeah, would it be 50%, wouldn't it, for dependent coverage?
Well, what the point here is each employer has a different strategy of how they make the contribution. This particular one is private sector. They do actually have employees here in San Antonio, but they are based in El Paso.
Well, my question to you.
They charge about they pay all but $100 of the HSA plan. They take that dollar amount and subtract it from each of the others.
I'm just asking you, with employees paying 50% of $1,287, that's a significantly higher premium than you're proposing.
Sure, this was based, each group is based on its own risk.
Does that have an effect on the discount factor that should be used?
Well, in this case, the carrier is on the risk, and so they're going to price it to make sure that, number one, that it's fair, number two, that they don't lose money.
It's nice about pricing strategy. I asked whether the higher premiums affect the discount factor.
No, I mean, you can look at these two different scenarios from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So regardless of where the starting premium was, the ratio is the same, 31.5 or 38, depending on the two deductibles. And so what's interesting too is here's United Healthcare, and a similar version, 38%. So you can see that across the industry, regardless of what type of entity it is, whether it's nonprofit, public sector, municipality, school district, or private, that they're all in the same ballpark in terms of their assumptions. So again, without junking up your presentation, and I do have links to all of the other documents, etc. So the city's provided us with claims data. This is the year 2013 for the police officers. This is a distribution by size of claims and the number of people in each category. And so what I did is I put together a formula to show if you were to adjust, this is the plan, these are the results driven off of your current legacy. We had $28.9 million worth of claims expense alone in calendar year 2013. Change in the deductible by itself is about 27% reduction to the total. If you add in the additional savings from the plan design changes that will drive people back in the network instead of out and reduce emergency room utilization, then mathematically this shows it could be a 36% reduction. If you go back and look at the same data from 2012, apply the same logic, it would support a 38.5% reduction. So whether it's Aetna, United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, your own data, the way you handle your own civilian plan, a 30% reduction in costs should be reasonable.
Do you have actuary backing this up?
No. But don't need one. I argue with actuaries all the time. And it's pretty simple math. So, page 13 would show that the actual cost of the health plan, when you run it down this way here, with contributions to the health saving account as proposed, would estimate a total per employee per year of $11,151. The proposal from October the 7th from the city, using your math, showed $10,948. That's about a $204 per employee per year difference. Or where that is, if we're going to use these contribution strategies and these assumptions, that's about $454,000 in a year greater than what your proposal says in terms of a per employee per year. So I did the math there to show you. Also shows the net savings relative to everybody just staying in the legacy plan, free coverage. Here's the same illustration. If we apply the city's strategy, a 32% differential between the new value and the consumer agreement. Under that scenario, if you use your approach, the per employee per year number works out to be $10,739, which is about $200 per employee per year less than what you had in your October 7th proposal, which would come in at close to $500,000 under the target that you set in your proposal of October 7th. Even though the carrier's illustration showed discounts as high as 38, I just plugged in 35 because that's what we talked about at the last presentation. If you had a 35% reduction, and this 35 is relative to the legacy plan, then the total PEPY would be $11,004. That's about $56.55 higher per employee per year, which is basically right in line with your proposed PEPY from October 7th. Now, so far all we've been doing is talking about people changing their behavior because of the plan design and savings due to premiums or payroll deductions, as well as co-pays and deductible changes. We haven't even started to address what really drives the cost down under the civilian program, is that your ratio of coverage dependents is a lot lower than those that are in the association plans. If there's a 10% reduction, and typically what you see in this scenario is that sometimes spouses have access to other coverage. I know you brought this up too during the discussions as well. If 10% of the spouses opt out of this plan and take coverage from their employer instead of participating here, then in each of these 3 different scenarios that we ran, these would be the resulting PEPYs. So even under the SEPOA proposal today, with a 30% discount assumption, if 10% of the spouses opt out, and I pulled 5% out of the, pulled out 5% of the spouses from employed spouse category and 5% from employee family, which causes the people in the family to drop down a tier to the employed child. Then the PEPY from the SEPOA version would be $10,984, which is within $2 of your per employee per year cost from October the 7th. Using the city's assumption, it would be $10,581, about, that's close to $1 million differential. And then if you use the industry, what I call it just industry assumption, or the 35%, then again, that's well below your target number. So in terms of going forward over the life of the contract, and one of the earlier proposals too, when we were looking at addressing premiums over the term of the proposal, we had proposed no more than a 7% increase in payroll deduction costs per year over time, and that's part of our proposal from today as well. I know there's issues about the legacy plan and the Cadillac tax, and whether that would exist for 1 year or however many years during the course of the agreement. What we would say is that since the membership would be contributing a significant amount, that it continue to be allowed to exist, unless as you get closer to the year 2018, it looks like it's going to go over the limit, in which case, you know, then it's reasonable to go ahead and eliminate the legacy plan. And that, as you saw in these numbers, the HSA contribution strategy supports the target of coming in at the city's targeted $10,984, whatever that number was. So we propose to continue the same HSA contribution strategy. So we'd like to think that we have come to the table with the proof that shows the logic behind our assumptions. We think our assumptions are conservative compared to what the city does in its own practice and what the industry does in its own practice. So we've met you essentially in any one of those 3 scenarios, either below or just slightly above the target premium or cost to the city that you've identified. The plan design changes are going to cause the effect of things that were identified on April 29th in terms of reducing claims that fall outside of the provider network and encouraging people to use the right setting at the right time to seek their help. And if the city's practices, so 2 of these 3 scenarios actually generate more savings than what we're proposing. And if those scenarios come true, then the city stands to benefit from that, from what I would call an underwriting gain. And that's the presentation.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I'll have Jason give you some of the numbers behind our wage proposal. During the break, Ian or Ed, you can call if they can, so we can try to figure out where we're at.
I guess I'll go ahead and stand up here to make things easier. What we've done is compile some of the data that we've used to come up with our payroll proposals. Just go ahead and dive into it. This is the wage proposal we're offering for today. This is basically the same wage proposal we made previously, less than 50 raises.
What page is that?
It's on the second page. I just emailed it to you because we didn't have it printed out, so I'm kind of the printer. But you've got an electronic version, your city email or whatever email you sent me before.
This is the same as last time, except dropping.
Yes, sir. So looking back in history, what I've done is compiled the data points of where everything fell through history. You can see the green line there is the available fund, which is a combination of revenues, transfers, and the net balance starting that year. Black line, simply appropriations, that could be anything from paper, payroll. And the blue line with the little triangles, or the diamonds rather, is the revenues that were projected for that year. And that's the starting adopted budget. And when I went back through and actually pulled the budgetary actuals off of the budget adopted 2 years later. So for instance, the 2015 adopted budget, you'll see the 2013 actuals there. And that's how it all lays out. You can see that the revenues trend close to the appropriations each year, and that the total available funds stays above the appropriations for each year. Kind of interface this old tech with new tech. Okay, so what we did now is we broke down, looking at CAPR data from 2013, how San Antonio ranks in comparison to the other cities. And what you'll see here is different from how the city usually calculates things. It's simply how much was spent on public safety divided by the total revenues brought in by the city that year. So for instance, Austin, you'll see for every dollar they brought in, they spent 53 cents on public safety. You'll see San Antonio down at the bottom at 39.59, and Bear County at the very bottom at 34.39. Then we went through trends in history, discovered that public safety as a percentage of total city revenue has stayed fairly stable within a point or two, always below, right around the 40% margin. And that's each year through, and you'll see some of the caveats there is that EMS was moved in 2008 from its own special revenue fund into the general fund, and in 2013 it was calculated inside of the public safety. This slide here is just showing how much of total city revenues go into the general fund. You can see over the course of the last few years that number of total revenues has dropped significantly. And in 14 and 15, those are the adopted budget and the proposed budget for 15. So looking back in time, you can see the total available funds. In the study that I looked at, there's only 1 year where the actual funds available for that year were lower than the budget amount. Yes, sir.
You say available funds, but when you're talking about
Total available funds is revenues plus the initial balance starting, the net balance.
they're not available unless they're in the general fund, correct? Because they're already getting it.
That's what I said. Total available funds is revenues plus the net balance, which is the beginning balance, plus your transfers. And as I look back in time, you can see the actuals. When we look back 2 years later after the experience of history, you see that on average, total available funds were 5.5% higher than projected or budgeted. And here's a neat little graphic where you can see where I've actually lined out the data points as they are. And you can see in 2009, which is, I guess, the most recent recessionary year we can look at in recent history, that was the only year where, when the dust finally settled, that you saw that the actual results were lower than the budgeted amount. On the appropriation side of things is the cost of providing services to the citizens, whether it's paper clips, paper, all the way up to payroll. It's non-capital expenditures. Throughout the 10-year study, the total actual appropriations have always been lower than the initial budget amounts. And they average around 2.2% lower than the initial budget. So that's basically saying the city spends less than it plans to every year. I guess this didn't like that slide. I guess I bumped the cable. And what I circled there is you'll see The blue line is the actual adopted budget amount, except the 15s is proposed. But the blue lines show that year's adopted budget. The orange line is the 6+6 estimate, which is used to base off the 5-year forecast. And I highlighted those 2 years, 2003 and 2014, because the 6+6 came in higher than the initially budgeted amount. And then you can see at the end, 2003, that came in just under. It's fairly consistent practice across the board. And what I wanted to show to everyone was how things break out in perspective. If the total operating capital budget is $2.4 million, how big does the general fund look in comparative size? You can see that there. And once you break down the general fund, you go into the public safety budget. From the public safety budget, you can go into the SAPD budget, and from there you can see how we derive the cost of the contract. And this is a relative perspective of how large the medical crisis has pushed the total budget, 1% of the total operating capital budget. Here, this is general fund appropriations. You can see how large, $690.8 million is going to public safety, $326.4 million goes to non-public safety costs. This is the public safety budget. You'll notice that I've included millions of dollars that are proposed budget show 15. You can see that the Parks Police budget is only $13 million of total costs. We can go through and break down the SAPD budget, where you'll see the collective bargaining agreement counts for $306 million, and you can also include $7.6 million for cost of cars. That actually breaks down to $11,500 per mark unit, which is $664. And then you got $30 million that go to civilian compensation, which is their total compensation inside the SAPD budget. And then supplies could be anything that's non-capital expense. This is the costs that we know of the collective bargaining agreement, broken down by individual components. You can see the highlights there. $29.7 million is the budget amount for fiscal year 15, and the fleet and legal fees and tuition reimbursement. Going forward for the projections, we went looking back in time, the same time period, where I actually have data from 2000 to 2015, some of it going back as far as 98. And you can see it's kind of hard to read on the screen up here, but basically the city's projections going forward is 4% revenue growth. You look back at every metric I could find, it's been higher than 4%. The lowest I could find was from 2005 to 14. No, sorry, it's the 2006 to 2015, the current budget cycle. It's got a good cable. Okay, well, it's quite easy to read just on paper. I'm not going to try and type this thing too much. But basically, the general census for us was that we didn't find any historical data higher or lower than the 4% that's projected going forward on the revenue growth. The next slide is appropriations. You can see the city is projecting 2% appropriations growth per year going forward. And then you've got the appropriations. The lowest I found was 4.2% from 2006 to 15. Applying the projections we were told by the city, on the next slide, which is slide 20, you'll see our general fund forecast, which starts at 19. Yeah, it's 19 on the paper, it's 20 on the electronic version, because the second page on the electronic version is the actual wages. Let's see if we get this up. But going forward, you can see the cost of the contract in 3 different scenarios that we've run. The lightest green is evergreen, medical grows at 7%. And the darker green would be if the city's assumption of a 20% growth rate of medical continues, how far relative to the general fund would that cost things to increase? And then the Royal Navy or navy blue color there is our proposal as it sits today. How much that would cost over time and increase over time, based on a 2% growth rate of assumptions on appropriations. And I took a little picture of it in blew it up so it could be bigger, so you can see line by line. If the city stays in evergreen, and then medical grows at 7%, you can see the actual cost of the CBA going down over time. If it grows at 20%, you'll still see that it goes down and then kind of rebounds back up. And then next to it is the cost of our proposal. And the last slide is what we call the perspective slide, and that just puts everything in perspective as far as how much it costs over the whole project. Are there any questions?
Very happy to correct.
Okay. That'll conclude my presentation.
Before we break, let me just fireman. That's alone. Driving back and forth.
Someone driving in reverse there.
That's the fireman. These could play a song, all right?
I did. I emailed it out while I was sitting.
And it's the same other than the first slide?
Yeah, the only thing I added was the slide 2 on the electronics is the actual proposal. So it's like, put together.
Yeah. You want to turn that over?
You got it?
Yeah.
No, we can print it out, right?
I don't have any access to printers over here, otherwise I'll print out.
All right, let me go ahead and give you the overview before we break on the other proposals. And I've sent you an electronic copy. I have only one hard copy because it's 50, 60 pages long. But basically, we've given you, we reduced our proposal to 4 years from 5 years. I'll go to the hard copy. And we've given you a proposal on the evergreen at 4 years. I tried to tie it into some type of council terms, but since they can run up to 8 years 4 times, so I just kind of took half of that. So that's just how I came up with 4 years, okay? It's a proposal. So what I also added was that if the association and the city reach an accord on a contract, then we have to agree that the evergreen is settled, that we don't want to settle on it on a period of time and then the city challenge it anyway. So if you agree, then as far as we're concerned, then the issue will be settled. That'll be the length of the contract and the length of the extension. You can read it. I told you I did it over the weekend. And so I put a savings clause in there that says that if a court makes a ruling on evergreen, then if we're in the middle of this contract, then we will change the contract to comply with whatever the court ruling would be. It's on 152, the hard copy. So, and I know you'll have to read it, and like I said, it needs some probably sharp eyes. I was trying to figure out the main basis of it, not to work out every word. So what I was trying to do is, if we're in the middle of the contract, and somewhere out there a court says, you can't have an evergreen, you can have a 2-year evergreen, you can have a 5-year, you can have a 10-year evergreen. If in fact it's shorter than what we've agreed, and we're in the contract, then that will do whatever the court says will be the law. And if in fact we've reached evergreen and a court sets a time, then I provided for an extension until we revamp the contract to comply with whatever the law is. So the parties don't have to go back to scratch. And it's flexible. Don't look at the concept, don't zero on every word. I wanted to get something done for today that you could understand where we're going. So if we agree, then we've settled that issue as far as we're concerned. But we don't control all events all over the state, and the court may hold something else. And if they do, then we'll comply. It's the same savings language you have in the contract anyway, that if some provision is held in illegal, unconstitutional, then the parties have to comply with the court order or make the adjustment. So take a look at it. It's a proposal. In Article 10, safety and equipment, Section 2, what we proposed, the city had asked that the mileage be increased from 70 to 100. I'm paraphrasing, so I realize it may. So we have agreed that the new vehicles, of course, can run 100,000 miles. The older vehicles still are at 70, and I may be mistaken, but my understanding is there was some type of study being done that we had here. I think there was some type of study being looked at about how long you could run these older vehicles. So I didn't try to put that language in there. What is it? So do I have this done right?
Yes, it's
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so the untested, I had the reverse argument. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I knew, the language is correct. The philosophy behind it is a little different. The older cars have all of the data, and the new cars, they're doing a data study. That's correct. So whenever that study...
Who is they?
I don't think...
Well, the industry, I mean, it's a brand new platform, new to the market.
Who's doing the study?
Ford. It's brand new to the market. They just came out with that Ford industry.
So anyway, it's a split to 100 on the Crown Vics, police interceptors, the Chevy Tahoes, 70,000 on other marked cars, and that's the proposal. No, it's in there. I just Crown Vic interceptors, Chevy Tahoes. You got our wage proposal is a 4-year deal, not a 5, of course. Health, you've heard it. On
The wage proposal has the same longevity proposal.
yes, compression in the third year. If you'll go to Article 32. I'll tell you what page in a second. Go on there. Here it is. It's about page 220. It's my printout. What we've done, this is supplemental. We have proposed to the city that as far as the group legal plan, that we have a phase out of the city's contribution, and the association will take complete control of the plan by the third year. So the city's contribution in the second and third year, that'll be the last of the city's payments. The association, by vote of secret ballot of its members, will determine its contributions, and they'll manage the plan. It won't be in the cities. They'll give us a chance to re-look at the plan, see what the members want to do, what they want to fund, but the city will phase down its contributions. So by October 1st, 2017, that would be the last. September 30th, that was the last city proposal. All right, on Article 33, 3 on education. We've given you some language that covers people who get grants, scholarships, reimbursements. The city won't be paying duplicate. And also, and I don't know if this was in any of the city proposals, but there had been some discussion about using the University of Texas at San Antonio for the rates. So I put that in there. So the UTSA rates, you can't, if you got money from another source, then you have to use that source. Anyway, and I think that covers all the things of which have been in the newspaper. I would just add that on the little inventory sheet I gave you, we've already have a tentative agreement on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 articles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more should be able to close out unless somebody, we either agreed with you or there wasn't much in them. Where I put no change proposed by association, there's no proposal by us. If the city, I know in some of those had proposals, of course it's negotiable, I'm just trimming it down. From our end, we didn't have any proposal in the rest of those. So on our end, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's only 5 articles left. Now, the big ticket items, but that's all that's left. And we think that we're within striking distance of getting this done. So did you want to break?
We would anticipate about a half hour, but I will text you.
Text me and let us know. All right, thank you very much.
All right, well, we're ready. We appreciate the union's proposal today. We've looked at it, a couple comments, and then I'm going to let Buddy talk, and Maria might have a few things to say. On Jason's economic proposal, we think that using what is referred to on the slides as total funds available or total city budget money misses the point and is really not material to what we're dealing with. Total money, which includes money outside the general fund, will include certain fixed obligations of the city which are not subject to being spent on collective bargaining agreements, including airport funds, hotel occupancies tax, money from solid waste, drainage fees, right-of-way taxes, and the advanced transportation district funds, just to name some. When the percentage of the general fund is considered, that using the general fund and using what public safety occupies the general fund is the appropriate basket to look at. And we've made clear, the city council has made clear, that we cannot allow public safety expenditures to exceed 66%. On the health proposal that was made today by the union, Buddy will talk about this, but we firmly disagree with the calculation, which is not backed by any actuarial support, of $10,900 per employee cost to the city that the union asserts. What we think has actually happened with the union's proposals are, you go back in time, the union came into negotiations basically proposing $12,200 as the cost per employee. And you go back to the $29 million first couple of proposals, that's there. Then last time, regressively went to $14,200. And now we think that the current proposal made today has a cost to the city of $12,249 per employee. And Buddy will explain why we say that. Let me give you some numbers. The city has made a 3-year proposal. You made a 5-year, today reduced it to a 4-year proposal. To compare the costs of the city's proposal with the union's current proposal, I'm going to compare the first 3 years' cost of the union proposal and the 3-year cost of the city proposal. The city's last proposal would result in new money being spent on the police collective bargaining agreement of $22,424,788 over 3 years. The union's September 23rd proposal for the first 3 years would result in an expenditure of $70,752,253 over the same 3-year period. Now that is $48,327,465 difference. The union proposal is $48 million plus more than the city's proposal in additional dollars. And that's using the September 23rd proposal. Now, let's go to the October 21st proposal made by the union. That would cost in new money over 3 years $80,999,664, or basically $58,574,876 difference. That's the difference. $58 million plus is the difference between the city's last proposal and the 1021 union proposal. Now let's go to today's proposal. And we talked at some length last time and subsequent to the last negotiation session about how the union had moved backwards by going from a cost over 3 years of $70 million plus to a cost of $80 million plus. The union's proposal today, we have calculated, and the union's proposal today had wages as the same in the last proposal that the union made. And the wages are the very expensive item. Wages and health are the drivers of this bargaining. The union's proposal today over 3 years, we calculate as would cost the city in new money over 3 years, $71,319,679, compared to the city's last proposal of $22,424,788. So the difference there is $48,894,891. So I guess the good news is the union has come down from its last proposal of $80,999,664 to the current proposal of $71 million plus. However, the bad news is it's still higher than the proposal that the union made on September 23. And the difference that the city and the union are apart on wages and health is $48,894,891. So I hardly think that we are, as the union says, within striking distance of reaching a deal.
Your team thinks that this proposal is more than the last one? Is that what you said?
No, I say it's more than the one made on September 23rd. Then you went up or aggressively went to a higher number on 1021. You have come down off the 1021 number, but you haven't come down as far as the September 23rd number. Now, the union did today, and we appreciate the movement, make some progress on the legal defense fund and tuition reimbursement. However, those items and other small items would only at maximum shave $2.3 million off of the cost of the union proposal, and that is over 4 years. So we think we are still a long way apart, and the wages are creating quite an issue. We think that the approach taken by the city by having some bonus payments in addition to some limited roll-into base wage increases is the better approach. But also on health, we're still quite a ways apart. The union looks at their proposal as being $10,900 in cost per employee per year to the city, and we calculated at $12,249. The union is not willing to submit to an actuarial study of it. We have submitted it to an actuarial analysis. I'd like Buddy to talk about the union's health proposal.
Jeff, just a second. You've done an actuarial analysis of your proposal?
He's talked with actuarial experts.
You have any
We don't
data from that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
And we're prepared to have it certified. But Buddy, why don't you talk about it?
Okay, so, you know, in the world of actuarial analysis and underwriting, in order to develop risk profiles, there are many factors that are used when these guys calculate these things. It's not as simple as using a data point of one company based in Laredo or another based in DeSoto or Sequoia or some place, or San Antonio, Texas. You can't do it that way. That's not the way that it's done credibly. So, as an example, when underwriters and actuaries are providing an analysis on any one particular group that's considered a large group, they're going to look at things like, is it fully insured or self-funded? What the size of the group is. 24 to 36 months worth of specific claims history on that group. Shock loss claims that have occurred in the last 18 months. Plan designs, the different carriers that are involved, the provider contracting that goes into each carrier, geography, the demographics of the group, the socioeconomics of the group. All these things are factors that go into underwriting a group. So it's completely implausible to say Laredo ISD, school teachers in Laredo that make less than half the wages that you guys do are going to have the same experience that you're going to have. It makes no sense whatsoever. No underwriter or actuary would ever say you can even put those two on the same sheet of paper. Same for Socorro ISD. Same for any ISD or trucking company or anybody else. You can't do that. So for that reason, we've got a couple dozen actuaries and underwriters on staff. And so every time these numbers come out, I send them to them and say, what do these look like? Furthermore, we send them to MHBT, which is another national firm, and their underwriters and actuaries give us their numbers. So, as an example, today's Randy came here and said that he anticipates that the savings to be 30%. Actuarially, it comes in at 17% without an HSA and 1.5% with an HSA. Likewise, MHBT came out just 30 minutes ago and said it's actually 2.9% higher than the legacy plan. Now, what drives all that is the HSA. So HSA contributions are fixed costs. $1,500 for an employee only and $3,000 for every dependent tier, excuse me. So at a cost of $1.3 to $1.5 million, depending on where everybody shakes out, that's what's driving that. It's a fixed cost. So if you just took the legacy plan and you took the CDHP, you put them close together, you guys are right on target. It's 17, 18, 19. United Healthcare in your example said it was 19%. It's probably 17 to 19%. But the minute you throw in the fixed cost of the HSA, that drops dramatically down to anywhere between +1 and -1 is what the results of that's going to be. So it's not simple math. You have to have somebody certify it. You can't point to various groups. You can't look at the civilians, for example, here in San Antonio. Again, different demographic, different socioeconomic, and the consultant that provided the numbers used 24 months of civilian-specific claims data to generate those numbers. None of that's been done here on y'all's side. We've done it every single time. So if you want to take this to the next level in terms of what is the percentage of difference, then we are highly recommending that you guys get on board with us and let's just get this thing certified. And if it takes 2, 3, 4 different certifications, let's do it. But they're going to be nowhere close to 30%. Let me just tell you that. With regard to the carriers that Randy used in his case studies, I will tell you that these carriers have what's called shelf rates, and every carrier has them. These shelf rates can apply to different geographies within a state. They can apply to a state. They can apply to parts of the country, etc. The reality of it is, again, like I said earlier, as it relates to individual companies, you can't say that. You can't say that Blue Cross Blue Shield, for example, and you look at their the rates that they have across the board, you can't say that these would apply, the differences would apply to the city of San Antonio, whether it's civilian or uniform. So the only thing that we can do going forward from this point in order to substantiate this is to get an actuarial certification. Again, they're not expensive, they're easy to do, we'll have firm numbers. You guys are all smart guys. I've met with you all privately and publicly, and you guys know that we can't go to city council, we can't go to the public, we can't go to anybody with numbers that don't have any credibility behind it. It's just not something that we can stand up and do.
All right, well,
What does the cost that you calculated of the unit proposal?
$12,249 is, plus or minus a percent.
How did you get that number?
Our actuaries ran it, and then we had MHBT's actuaries run it, and they came out with 13,000 plus. It was higher than ours.
How did they get that number?
Well, I gave them the plan design, new plan designs.
When we talked before, you said that they didn't look at any of the group-specific data and claims data when they came up with their answer.
I don't know if MHBT did or not. We did.
Well, you told me that they didn't. You say this
I don't know if they have or not. I don't recall if they have. I thought you said they didn't have any underwriters. We confirmed that they do.
Okay, no, I was talking about your.
Oh, no, we have these, absolutely.
Your underwriter.
And we're ready to certify it if that's.
So, just to go back to Mr. Londa's point, we didn't say that you wouldn't do an actuarial study. We said is we don't have.
Well, actually, you told me that you wouldn't.
I didn't say I wouldn't.
Okay, I asked you
When
point blank, can you
you
have
asked
this
me if I
certified?
had
You said no. It's not
By
necessary, we're
today?
not going to do it.
No, I can, if you want to, then we'll get an actuary. Do the whole certification.
let me take 5 minutes. Are we back at the,
Right here.
all right. God bless Texas. Just a couple of things. I know we've been having this math battle, and I'm determined today to be calm and not use the word voodoo math, but since we disagree, we disagree. I would like to let Buddy and Randy pick a mutually agreeable actuary, and then they can frame what goes into the machine, so both sides know, because I don't know what Buddy tells them, he doesn't know what Randy says, oh, I called and gave him X, and I don't know what he gave him. I don't know. They gave him all of it, I don't know. And we'll pick somebody mutual, we'll split the cost, and that'll be the number. Agree, disagree, we may have to adjust if that's wrong. We're willing to do that. Also, a lot of numbers are thrown around about the cost of the wage package, and we've got a CPA firm that knows municipal governance and math, but we just got the letter of engagement, and in this interim period, whenever this deal is over, we'll be prepared to take a look at what we think the cost is. Like I said, it's a legitimate negotiations as to whether you want to pay it or not. But we shouldn't really have an argument about what it costs. We should know that and then say, I don't want to pay it, I don't want to pay it. So we'll do that, and as soon as they can get that done, then we'll come back to the table and then we'll know what the math is. Randy, you want to cover a couple things?
Sure. Let me respond to that
Sure.
first. We need to talk with Buddy about that, and I suppose if we had an actuary that we both selected the issue, should that person look at the cost of both the city proposal and the union's proposal. And I think there are issues like that we would need to talk about. We'll get back with you on that. We hadn't considered.
I'll be fine. I guess part of it is we've accepted your proposal for legacy, not the length, but the proposal. With your numbers, we accepted your proposal for new value, so you should know what the costs are. We did change the consumer driven to but your estimate is only 20% of the people will go into that. So,
Well, a big driver, we think, on what you did to consumers is the HSA being so high.
yes, but only 20% probably will go. We also cut it down for individuals and encourage people to go. I mean, we think we can make it work, but it's been the city's position that it's 30, 50, 80, 20. Now, if you think there's some other migration, then I guess you can run a study and tell us, but we're basing it on that, but we, under your scenarios, 100% of the people aren't going. So it isn't that much more money than we had before. We had 222, and now it's 1,503.
But you never, in our view, you never had a 10 times proposal. You had a 12-2 proposal, you had a 14,000 something proposal. Now you back to a 12 proposal.
Well, I don't know that it's 12. That's your position. I don't know if that's true or not. If it is, it is. I don't know. I don't know.
The other thing I thought I'd mention is, you know, the numbers on the wage costs, they're really not that hard to calculate. And you can have your accountant or CPA do it. But those numbers of what a certain percentage in wages cost is pretty easy to determine. And the city's proposal, I mean, the union's proposal today would result in the third year of 70% of the general fund being occupied by public safety.
And I don't know if that's true or not, Jeff. You just say it, doesn't mean it's true. If it is, it is.
Well, we've gone over the numbers with you before. The numbers are what they are.
Well, let's just avoid.
All right, Randy.
I've taken a chill pill. I'm really trying to be calm. Go ahead.
Well, if you'll refer to page 13, what we did for you is kind of like when you're in grade school, doing long division, the teacher says, don't just write the answer, show your math. So we've shown you the math. We've used, like Ron said, your offer on the new value plan. We've actually went a little bit higher payroll deduction amount under the legacy plan. And the math, the ones that are highlighted in yellow, for the legacy plan, that is the cost, $10,821. That's the math. You take those 30% of those people, times those number from the city, divide by the total number of employees in that category, 713. Rounded to a two-digit decimal place. You're going to get 10,821.70. That's the neat thing about math, is everybody's calculator works the same way. So you plug those numbers in.
So another neat thing
That's-
about math, Randy, is that you just said that the value plan, and Ron said also the legacy plan and value plan didn't change. That's not factual. The value plan did change from our proposal. We had a $25 PCV and a $50 specialist. We had on here $25.35. We had a $250 emergency room payment, we lowered that to $150. And we had a $50 urgent care to incent urgent care, and we got on here $75.
Yeah, it'd be a typo.
I mean, I'm just trying to deal with facts here. That's all right.
Yeah, you're right.
That's just a challenge.
We're talking over our proposals, so those are pretty minor.
Well, correct.
Buddy, why don't you explain why this, in our view, does not add up to the numbers that's on there?
Well, let me, if I could, just let me go on to the value plan, because it's the same concept. Those numbers times those rates equals $10,800. Those two categories, by your recommendation, account for 80% of the population. So you're saying that the other 20% of the population would drive this entire proposal up to $12,000, whatever you said, $249. That's pretty tough for me to acknowledge. I'd also disagree, or just point out too, that there are differences between groups and demographics, etc. But one of the things I like to tell my clients, as I pointed out, I work with a lot of public entities, cities, counties, and school districts around the state. My message is consistent with each one. I work with various entities in the same geographic region. Sometimes it's a city and a county, sometimes it's a city and a school. But I like to say that pretty much people are people. All the people that live in this community see the same healthcare providers. You drink the same water, you shake hands with a lot of the same people, you tend to have the same demographics and health risks. With the carriers are doing when Buddy's addressing there is what they're doing in the price, and again, this is math. They're just assigning a relative value for the difference between one plan design and another. And it's just called cost shifting. You raise the budget, etc. I showed you the math too, where we did the math to come up with the numbers, and then we went below that number if you don't think it's realistic. So I just have a really tough time figuring that somehow this math with your assumptions and those numbers, including the HSA contributions, et cetera, now suddenly has jumped to $12,240.
Randy, just one more thing. And I won't belabor this. On page 5 of your presentation, does Corpus and El Paso both have the type of programs that you're recommending here? PPO and CDHP?
No,
Or they don't?
no, or does Dallas?
All right, so what's the relevancy of pointing out slide 5 then to us?
What I wanted to do is answer some question about my capabilities or my assumption of my math. And this was a slide that was presented to the Health Care Task Force to say, look at all these other cities. I was excited to see that 2 of my clients are near the bottom there in terms of poster child to maintain the cost. The third one was answered the question that you posed last time is there any city that only offers high deductible health plans? And the answer to that is yes. Dallas. So no, there's a combination of different strategies. In Corpus Christi, there's just a high and a low plan. Or PPO, like your legacy and conservative. In El Paso, there's now 3. There's like a legacy, new value, and a consumer good.
But y'all have been
That's
bringing
not
up
that's not
comparable
reflected
cities
in the
from
numbers.
day one, both in wages and healthcare. I mean, you've used the same city, only last week, where your healthcare exceeds other cities' healthcare. So we have a slide that came from Lane says, here it is. And we can nitpick it, but
So it's actually, I mean, the point being that actually do this for a living. Got a lot of public entity clients, and nobody's terminating this.
all right. Anything else, Jeff?
No, we'll get back.
All right, thank you.